Hello, theme park enthusiasts, and welcome back to Planet Coaster. In the last episode, we finished up the wooden coaster for my recreation of Cliff's Amusement Park, and in this episode, I'm going to put in the small kiddie coaster that is over next to the wooden coaster. Now, this is supposed to be, as I said, a small kiddie coaster that basically does a figure eight, but as you will see in this video, a few things in the game sort of precluded me from doing it exactly as I wanted. Really, this coaster should only go about 10 feet in height and should be fairly small in size, just doing a very compact figure eight to allow the vehicles to spin around. But the first issue in the game is, for the spinning coaster, I can't use drive tires to lift it up the hill, which means I have to use a chain lift, which also means that it has to go in a straight line instead of in the curve of a lift hill with drive tires. So, I had to choose between using the proper vehicles or having a chain lift. I decided to go with the proper vehicles, the spinning ones, versus having the perfect figure eight. So, had to go a little bit higher and then have the drop in it here. I go ahead and build this out, and as you can see, it's already getting a bit bigger than I would like it, but you know what, it is as it is. These are certain things that I really do hope that if they make a Planet Coaster 2 Frontier might iron out, because, I mean, a figure eight spinning coaster is a fairly standard coaster. They could put it into the game even as a ride, just one of the standard rides, because it really is about the size of a ride instead of an actual coaster. So they could just put it in as a ride and have it as something you can plop down in your park. I would not mind that at all. It would work perfectly fine, but we'll have to see what they end up doing if they end up doing a second game. As I said, it's just a little bit of an annoyance because of the fact that this is one of those things where it just really makes it hard to recreate something exactly. As you can see here, even though I've tried to keep the height of the ride low and such, this has become much bigger than I really wanted it size-wise. And in a little bit here, I'm going to test this out as soon as it is done being formed, and I'm going to realize I actually need the height to be more so in order to get it to work the way I want it. So with that in mind, I'm going to have to raise the lift hill here some, and this is going to become even bigger. Does it do basically what the ride does? Yes. Am I happy with the absolute result of it? No. Here I'm basically trying to smooth it out to try to get that drop from the hill to sort of flow through the entire portion instead of having a flat piece of track. It doesn't work exactly as I would hope it would here, and with that in mind, that's where I end up putting in the larger hill here. But as I said, we'll go ahead and have it test. The cars do get a little bit of spin to it, not a ton, and that's really sort of accurate to the ride. As I said, this is meant as a kid's ride, but one of the things for me was this is the first spinning coaster I've ever gotten to go on. And so while I am looking forward to in the future getting on much larger spinning coasters, it was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. I think I ended up, when I was at Cliff's, going back on this ride probably 4 or 5 times even with my fiance. Because it's not that it's a huge thrill and stuff, but just having the spin function to it makes something that would otherwise be fairly boring, just a very simple figure eight with a slight descent to it, into something that really is quite entertaining. So here I am testing it again. I decided to ride it. The track does arch to the outside slightly, but that does give it the spin that I'm looking for, so I decided to leave that arch in it. Even when I do make the coaster bigger. So, as I said, it doesn't spin an enormous amount, but the spinning is sort of random. This train, or this coaster does have 4 cars to it, as I've created in the game here, which is a good thing. So I was able to get that fairly accurate. I go ahead and change it also here, because it is just the basic shape here, to a lapping coaster, and it does 3 laps to it. The actual coaster really seemed to vary, and I think it was based on how many people were in line for a ride on it. The attendant there, which overall I really want to compliment Cliff's as a organization, they had great attendance at their park. The staff there were ultra friendly, ultra nice to everybody. When you're passing by on like the train and stuff, they would wave and whatnot. So it was really a great experience in that way. But on top of that, for a ride like this, if there's no one standing in line, the attendant would go ahead and run it many more times as far as laps. I think the one time we ended up with like 6 laps on it, which was a lot of fun. And then if there's more of a line, he would narrow it down some and make it a bit shorter, which was completely understandable. So I'll say right now, the ride is probably as close to what it should be height-wise and such as I could get it. But it nearly stops on the track. I have sped up the video footage a little bit here, and so even though it looks like it's cruising along at a reasonable speed, it really does almost slow to a stop at points on that flat part of track that I'm trying to adjust there. And what I really realize is I've got to drop it from a little bit higher of a height if I want it to have any speed and to be somewhat interesting for the riders. And again, it makes it different than I want it to be. It makes it not accurate, but it's within the limitations of the game, so I had to recreate it to the best of my ability here. So it is bigger than I wanted, and it does go higher than I wanted, but overall it does recreate the feel of the ride, I feel, fairly accurately. Here I'm sort of pausing to figure out what it is that I need to do in order to adjust this. I was trying to figure out if I could change the height and whatnot to it, but that didn't seem like it was going to really, like just the height variation on the track itself, didn't seem like it was going to work. So in the end, as I said, go ahead and delete that part, put in another piece here to drop it from a higher height, which, as I said, do feel like I lost in a way with it, but it was what I was able to do within the limitations of the game. And then always the fun with Planet Coaster of trying to click on the piece of track you're wanting to get instead of other pieces of the track. So I put in the higher hill here, and I figure, okay, what I'll do is then I'll just go ahead and drop it consistently throughout, hopefully. And I do that by going ahead and putting in the drop here at the beginning, and at different portions through this section here. Some of it will be raised up, some of it will not. Here was an odd glitch where I'm just simply trying to raise that piece of track one, and instead it keeps flipping it around. It was very annoying overall. So I try, I think, one more time here. Got that glitch again, and just decided to heck with it, and I'll have to shape it myself afterwards. So as I said, I wanted the descent. I realized that if I have it descend all the way through, it's going to drop way too quickly. So I had to put a drop at certain points on the track, but not at all points. So sort of gaining some speed off the drop initially, then I'll have it somewhat be flat around, get it to straighten out. As you can see, it is much larger than it was before, but that's just sort of what I'm going to have to deal with it. Then I'll put in more of a drop right here. And then, as I said, my plan was I'll go ahead and get it all connected, and then I'll smooth all through the entire portion, hopefully to get the drop to be fairly consistent throughout. And that did seem to work in this case, so I do like that smooth all tool in the game. It did really help in this particular situation. And as I said, really for me, I think the simplest solution to this kind of a coaster, I didn't see any on the workshop really that were able to do this either any better than I was achieving here. But the thought I have is I think they would be almost better off with this type of a coaster of simply just making it a ride within the game. Just make it a simple flat ride that you can put down. Because yes, while it is technically a coaster, it does take up the space and function more as a flat ride. And I think that would make the whole thing simpler. So I got the track to connect here, and then as I said, I highlight this whole section, and then I go to smooth all, and I was pleased with the results I get out of it here, where it goes ahead, and as you can see, there's that lump in the middle of it, takes that out, smooths out some of the nasty edges of the track and such, and made it somewhat a consistent decline throughout the entirety of the ride. Is it a perfect figure eight? Definitely not. Is it much taller than it needs to be, or it is in real life, and much bigger overall? Yes, without a question. But that is what happens with the parameters that I'm sort of stuck with in the game. As I said, the rides do spin sort of freely, which is exactly what I wanted, and it does give a unique experience. Has a bit of a drop there at the end. This did really improve the ratings. It's still very lightly rated. It's mostly in the red, I believe, as far as excitement and stuff. But again, it is a kid's ride, so that's perfectly acceptable as far as I was concerned. Went ahead and named it, and I had already changed the colors as you saw earlier. So basically I was just waiting for the testing of the multiple laps to get through so I could see my ratings, and then I could go ahead and be done with it. Accidentally clicked on the wrong thing, so it was going to have to restart the testing, and so I do decide to speed it up to just get through this testing overall. As I said, not going to be anything truly exciting, and I would much have preferred it being a flat ride that I could just place in a space that was more accurate to it. With it being as large as it is going to force my hand on some other decisions I will make as well, where I will not be able to put in some of the details or other small things in areas that I would have liked, because this coaster is now taking up the location where that would have gone. So we'll have to see in upcoming videos as to how that works out, but I already am aware of the fact that it is going to play a role in the challenges I'm going to face with that. So then I go ahead and put in the entrance and exit. You did see also I lowered the coaster some, because the coaster does pretty much hug the ground. So it's not like it's raised up any at all, other than the actual incline to make the descent. The cue for it here, I'm going to go ahead and put under the wooden coaster after I get some cattle penning in, just so I have plenty of room for the coaster. So if it does get a crowd, it'll have some line area. And then this is sort of where it did actually come out in relation to the wooden coaster. There was no set queue line per se. There was a very small area for waiting, but really you just sort of formed a line naturally on the pavement of this area, where there was sort of a circle of concrete in the middle of the wooden coaster here. So that's what I'm recreating here. Had the issue of the path trying to connect itself against my will, so I just moved it back some in order to get this path in sort of where I wanted. I'm just sort of loosely putting it in now. Probably in the next video I'm going to be working on the flat rides that are also going to be in this area, and when I do that, it's going to probably go ahead and not only solidify the plans for the area, but I'll also probably have to adjust that path some to make it work for what I'm wanting. So now that I got the path in, I go ahead and connect the queue line up. And with that, we are fairly quickly coming to the end of this video. If you did enjoy what I did in this video, and you enjoy the little figure 8 coaster here, I will plan on publishing this entire file with all of Cliff's Amusement Park once I finish the park in its entirety to the Steam Workshop, just like I did with my recreation of Western Playland. And if you want to, definitely feel free to download it. If you like what I did though in this video, please go ahead and click that like button. And if you've not already, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, so that you're aware when I produce new videos in the future. Thank you, and I hope to see you all again for the next episode of Planet Coaster.